Does my hat make you feel a little jelly? Don't lie, because I know it does. But I have good news for you, because I made an easy to follow tutorial on how I made this, complete with a custom template that I made that makes it so easy. You might even have most of the materials that you need to make this at home. It's mostly just cardboard, fabric, and a mountain of hot glue. You could finish this hat in a weekend or in one really long day if you like to procrastinate till the very last minute. I know most of you watching this are probably making this the day before your event, so I say this with love, you have got to get your life together. If there's anything I know from watching too much SpongeBob as a kid, is that jellyfish love to throw a good rager. So if you want to cosplay as a zesty little ocean creature, then let's get started.
You are going to need these tools. You will need cardboard, a cutting mat or more cardboard to go under your cardboard, batting, your fabric of choice and all of your decorative trims, and no cozy craft is complete without an animal to snuggle during your breaks. We're going to start by laying out all the pages of my paper template. Each page is going to have a white border around the edge, so you could just trim that off and then just line up the pages and tape them together. Once you have all of your pages taped together, then your template should look something like this. My printer was dirty, so ignore all the extra little lines. Now it is time to take your template and tape it to your cardboard. If you don't have a giant sheet of cardboard like I do, then you could take multiple pieces and just duct tape them together. It doesn't have to look pretty because none of the cardboard is actually going to be seen. I just like to hoard anything that could possibly be a crafting material, and that usually means giant sheets of cardboard. Next, we're cutting out the template, making sure the cutting mat is always underneath the knife so we don't cut up our work surface. We found it easiest to cut out the circle first and then to cut out the little slots and notches. Ta-da! Now it looks like a little windmill. I hope you like hot glue because it is going to be your best friend for this next step. Say goodbye to your fingertips. We pre-folded each flap along this circle because it just made it a little bit easier when gluing. Squeeze a little glue on this notch and then tuck it underneath the piece next to it. Flip the hat over and then add more glue to support this seam. Repeat that step until all of the flaps are glued together. Don't worry about any messy bits like this, just focus on getting it really sturdy and glued together well. None of this is going to show through in your hat. But let's make this hat actually wearable by making the piece that's going to sit on your head. We are just going to cut out a simple rectangle. I didn't make this part of the template because you are going to adjust this to the size of your head. We're basically making a crown, so get it to a size that feels comfortable on your head and then glue it. I started with a 5-inch tall crown, but in testing it out, the mushroom sat a little higher than I wanted it to, so I cut it in half to 2.5 inches. That was a sweet spot for me, but you could decide how high or low you wanted to sit. Next, we are going to attach the crown to the hat with more hot glue. Because if anything is going to hold our messy lives together, it is going to be hot glue.
Okay, so we have just finished our template. Now is the time where we get to decide if this becomes a jellyfish hat or a mushroom hat. At this point, you have complete creative freedom for how this turns out. I will show you my process for making this hat, and you can take as much or as little inspiration from that as you want. We are going to be using batting, the fabric color of your choice, and lots of fun ribbons and extra strips of fabric as we feel needed.
Let's get absolutely batty and lay your batting underneath your hat. We're gonna cut a circle around it, leaving plenty of allowance because we could trim off extra later. We're just gluing the batting directly to the cardboard, but to make sure it looks clean, we're gluing it in even sections. First in quadrants and then 8ths, 16ths? I don't know, math. However it worked out, it gave us pretty even looking pleats. We glued all along the bottom edge of the hat and then cut off the excess. I know there's a lot of we talk for someone who's only been on camera when a task is complete, but I promise I was helping. It's just hard to film and craft at the same time. But we repeated all those steps for 2 layers of batting. And then from here is the most exciting part, and that is the actual decoration. Grab that beautiful fabric you chose for this project and lay it on top of your hat. And we are gonna wrap this fabric just like we did with our batting, except this time we're gonna tuck our excess fabric underneath the hat. This keeps it all tidy, and this edge will be covered with fabric in a future step. Since my fabric is sheer, my sister glued on a second layer while I ate tacos and Tobias supervised. I promise I'm actually helping. Kind of. A little bit. Sometimes. When I want to. This is where our project goes from hat to jellyfish. We use this beautifully ruffled fabric that really sells the jellyfish look, lots of iridescent trim in different colors, and these clear beads that look like water droplets. But your trims could be whatever you want them to look like. Starting with our ruffled trim, we glued 1 layer to our outside edge with the majority of it peeking out, and then a second layer with only half of the trim peeking out. Doing it like this with the 2 layers gave it a really great depth. Then we marked out 2 of the cardboard segments to be the front of our hat, because next we'll be gluing our jellyfish tendrils and we don't want any of them blocking our face when we actually wear it. Cut out a bunch of strips of ribbon to your desired length. I wanted mine to be close to the floor without dragging. Glue them onto your hat except on the pieces you marked as the front.
And congratulations, my darlings, because we have made it to the very last step, which is getting the texture for the bottom of the hat. Now, there are two different ways that you can do this. For the mushroom hat, we pleated it before we glued it on, and for the jellyfish hat, we pleated it while we were gluing it on. I'll show you how we did both techniques. For both options, we need strips of fabric that are 12 inches tall and long enough to wrap around the whole hat. Pleating actually uses a lot more fabric than you would expect, so I recommend having enough strips to add up to at least 20 feet long, depending on how tight you want your gathers. Now, I'm not a sewing expert, so I recommend checking out a quick YouTube video on how to gather your fabric, but we did a simple sewing machine gather. However, you don't need a sewing machine and can absolutely gather by hand. All you'll need is some needle and thread. With our fabric gathered, we glued it upside down along our outside edge. Then we flipped the fabric over, giving us a clean edge on the outside, and we glued the other side of the fabric to the inside of the crown. That way, the messy edge will be hidden by your head. For option 2, like we did on that jellyfish hat, we glued it upside down along the outer edge like last time, except this time we would glue 2 inches down, fold a 1-inch pleat, and glue that down, repeating all the way around the hat and then gluing tighter pleats around the inner edge. And now you are finished. You are officially the cutest little patootie with the cutest patootie hat. That is so cute!
I love it!
Oh my gosh, it's perfect. What happens if I spin really fast? Oh,
You
Jesus.
just taking out. Oh shit!
Look like the Rasta guy on Shark Tales.